Good evening. Through the prayers of Holy Fathers, Lord Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us. Amen.
Amen.
Uh, Evening all. This is Father Joseph Swaden. I see Father Boniface is in the chat. Today is a live Q&A. So, were you saying something, Father? I can't hear you.
No, can you hear me?
No, there's no audio.
There's no audio.
You're unmuted, so I'm not sure. No, now you're muted. But again,
Can you hear me now?
today
Oh,
we're,
okay.
I'm going for the hard questions. I've got this, we're doing the wonderful multi stream here on Facebook and on Twitter. I have no idea. Okay, Roka Remnant says he can hear you, Father Boniface, so it may just be me. Give me a second.
Well, I'm just testing the system here, making sure I'm on.
I can hear you. I can hear you. Okay, great. That was my audio. All right. Well,
Well,
oh, go ahead.
I'm just going to step out for a few minutes. I'm getting echo too, so let me check out, and I'll see you in a little bit.
All right, sounds good. All right, we'll see you soon, Father. Okay, so today is kind of, I put it TBA because, quite frankly, um, it's been kind of a crazy couple of weeks, and so we've gotten a lot of questions and comments offline, online, um, about True Orthodoxy in general, and also questions that sometimes I think might be less than appropriate. Well, may God bless those in the chat who are asking for a blessing. Um, and so I'm just, we'll just go through all the hellos we've got so far. But in any case, again, this is a live Q&A. So anyone can call in using the link in blue if you're on YouTube. I think that link has also been given to the Facebook as well as let me see here. I don't know how the Twitter thing works yet, so I'm going to just go to profile and see if okay, it does show here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment here. You can call in live as well. So that's just there, so that they have that. But in any case, anyone can call in live by simply clicking on the links that are there. Okay, what is this? Why is this not working? Did this not? Okay, I guess it just goes to the YouTube. Give me a second while I try to get a StreamYard link into Twitter. Okay, copy that. And so we've got it going on Facebook, we've got it going on Twitter, and we've got it going on YouTube as we usually do. So, because we're getting more and more questions, and some of them are basic, some of them are not quite basic, some of them are a little complicated, but I really kind of want to deal with them regardless. I do like the fact that YouTube defaults to mute, so it doesn't automatically like fill my stream with a dozen different things. Yes, I see. I understand that, Father Boniface. Um, Anyone can call in, just using either the link that you see in the YouTube chat or in Facebook or Twitter, just so that we can answer questions, and or answer comments and assertions. I mean, just recently, a couple of days ago, somebody was asking me, like, how could one say that Metropolitan Theophatus of Morphu or Archbishop Luke of Jordanville could be considered ecumenist? This isn't a particularly difficult question for me. I can actually just read the email I wrote back because I'm sure that people do hear this and I can always turn a clip out of it. I wrote back, greetings, blank, the feast. Sorry for the delay. May God bless you. It's not actually as tall a claim as one thinks. In the first place, Metropolitan Neophytos is a new calendarist, which means he not only directly supports the ecumenism of his synod, but the subsequent persecution of the true Orthodox, of whom he has shown awareness in interviews over the years, so he knows who they are. In the second, the State Church of Greece has been part of the World Council of Churches since 1948. Bishop Luke of Syracuse is an odd case. It would seem in his later years he's going to fight for tradition until he isn't. It seems he has dropped out of the latest Father Peter Here's conference as quickly as Metropolitan Neophytus has joined, which was over the past couple of days. but by simple association, the Moscow Patriarchate has been a WCC member church since 1961, and he is formally part of the Moscow Patriarchate, unless he sees commemoration, which to my knowledge he hasn't. Unless he has protested the MP's leniency towards RCs and Monophysites, he is basically submitted to ecumenism. So, as you can see, this is a fairly straightforward question. But hey, I'm liking the hard questions. So if you have hard questions, please jump on the stream or ask us directly in the comments. Either way, I'm more than happy with that. And we're going to keep going until we run out. So Refined Canine says, is there somewhere I can see what synods are in communion with who? Okay, wait, let me see here. Okay, this may be a two-part question. Also, a friend of mine believes that GOCK and other TO synods being in communion with ROCOR before 2007, who was in communion with the EP, disproves true orthodoxy. Okay, that doesn't quite make sense. First off, unless you're saying that the ROCOR is the standard of true orthodoxy, once again, it goes back to this whole centralized concept of orthodoxy, which is basically disguised papism. It's just not how orthodoxy works. If you're part of an Orthodox church, they're an Orthodox church. They're confessing the faith. They have the apostolic succession. They're performing the mysteries of the church. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Communion, as much as it is good in an ideal situation, is a secondary concern when you're dealing with worldwide heresy. So it's not like the ROCOR was in communion with the GOC or other synods before 2007, so they were Orthodox, and then they went into communion with the EP in 2007 by default, and so they suddenly became. That's not how this works. Again, there is no Orthodox papacy. It's a question of who is following the Orthodox faith, who is adhering to it, and who is proclaiming it, and who is sticking with it. So if we can get out of that sort of thinking of you have to be in specific communion with someone, then you're going to run into problems. If you recognize a fake church as a real one, isn't that a problem though? Once I hear fake church, it's like my Erhan meter goes off. A fake church is a Vagante church. A fake church, you're talking about if there's no sincerity, there's no real succession, there's no real believers, there's no real people there, and there's no one living the Orthodox faith. Fine, that's a fake church. Does that have to do with any of the people that are being called fake church by these ecumenist wannabe apologists? No, it doesn't. It's just a name they throw around, and it's kind of a pathetic name. So no, it's not. The point is people make mistakes. Sometimes you can have a church that's gone heretical enter into temporary accidental communion with the true church, but they'll eventually prove their heresy and leave. But it's not that problematic. Let me see here. I have a question. It's a rather annoying one, so please forgive me. No, that's what this show's about. We're going to do all the annoying questions. Think of your hard questions, and let's deal with those. So I have a question. It's a rather annoying one, so please forgive me. Matthew would say that Metropolitan Chrysostomos of Florina was an ecumenist because of the encyclical that followed the 1935 encyclical claimed that the NCs were potentially schismatic. What do you think about such a claim? I would say that the Matthewites are not lying. If you look at the 1950 encyclical that was put out by the Florinite Church, they flatly say it's time for us to stop using language like potentiality, etc., as it's academic and it's dangerous. So they flat out admitted that, in fact, the Matthewites were right. This is something that a lot of people don't understand because we're still looking for a bad guy. There are people who become true Orthodox and they're like, aha, but the bad guys are these guys. And that's not how this works. The Matthewites were confessors of Orthodoxy. They weren't wrong when it came down to that. They may have gone too far as to say the Florinites were not Orthodox, and I think many of them modified their language by the 1970s. But the point is to say that there's got to be some bad guy, etc. It's kind of silly. So no, I think that I hate to say this, what I think about such a group, they're actually right. Until 1950, when Metropolitan Chrysostomos issued his statement, which they assumed was in bad faith, but assuming it wasn't in bad faith, then ultimately they hold the same positions. So today, could there be World Orthodox clergy today with valid orders? Also, I can't stand Urham. Please don't associate me with him. Okay, well then we've got to start assuming people are operating in good faith and not calling them fakes. It is unless you can definitely show that by their perversions or twisted confessions, etc. It's very dangerous to say that people who hold to the Orthodox faith, people who are trying to live their Orthodox lives, are fakes. So as I said, I don't like it in my mouth. You don't like it in yours. Let's get away from language like fake. It's truly evil, and semi-papist. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Sava. Hello, Sava. And so yeah, today we're going to do hard questions. I'm looking for the questions that annoy people to death. I'm looking for the ones that no, you don't have to apologize. Refined Canine questions that bother people. Like I know that we have deal with a lot of these all the time. Hello, and this is I assume in either Serbian or I guess he's just saying hello. And more Serbian. Okay, I'm only posting up English from here on. So if you want a question, if you have a question, we're gonna we'll answer it. You have a comment, an argument, etc. Okay, we got a new one. Here we go. Brody Alexander, young old boy, says, I've been attending a Rokor church and I'm starting to question what the point is. I was told the liturgy is a vision of theosis, but I just stand around awkwardly getting out of people's way. Um, okay, so it sounds to me like you may just it sounds like you're fairly new to the service. But in any case, I don't know if you kind of were going to I don't know, maybe a World Orthodox Church in English and you were used to that, and now it's kind of like you're not feeling that because it's just standing there, maybe in another language. I have no idea what the situation is. The best thing I can suggest is probably getting a prayer book and trying your best to follow along in the language you're comfortable with. I stand by the debit machine all liturgy. I've never seen an ATM at church. I have no idea what that means. But in any case, yeah, my suggestion is if you feel like you're not close enough in the church, probably move a little bit forward so you can hear better what's happening in the service. It's I mean that's just a minor thing, and as I said, using a book to follow along as best you can is helpful. Joshua Blind G says, how do the TOC GOC support those who do not live anywhere near any of their parishes? That's a real good question. And it varies depending on the jurisdiction and depending on the resources that they have. Okay, and so ultimately, I guess you could say that's up to the bishop. If the bishop feels that there's a community or a family grouping, etc., that's sufficient that they can form a mission and do reader services, that's one thing. They may be able to send priests over. It really all depends on the material ability of the synod in question, and also on how many what they can do to help get priests over. And then it says they sell icons and wax candles in the narthex. It's all Slavonic, so there's nothing to hear. Via debit machine. Thank you, Father. Okay, well, I mean, first off, I for one am not against learning Church Slavonic. I can read it. I'm a little out of shape with it, but I can. It sometimes helps. I would highly recommend. The best thing I can recommend is there was an old Metropolia prayer book that is still for sale. It has the English and the Slavonic on opposite sides. One of the Metropolitan, it was blessed by Metropolitan Leonti, Filipovich, if I remember correctly, and that particular prayer book would allow you to actually follow along, even what they're saying in Slavonic, and you can actually see it in English. So it might take a little practice, but it can help. And you learn another language. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's it helps. It actually helps a lot to practice learning other languages sometimes. And then you still have the benefit of hearing it in English. Hopefully, they do the gospel and the creed in English, so you get 90% of it. But it takes some work. But yeah, it's an issue, but it's not as big an issue as people realize. Like up until probably 40 years ago, most liturgies in the U.S. were not in English. Even I'd say, dare say, in the Greek Archdiocese, that most of them were actually in their native languages. Um, Also, one more question: thoughts on churches live streaming services and communion on YouTube? Two different questions. Um, the first one is thoughts on churches live streaming services. I love it. I spread them around as far as I can. We can see live stream services in Bulgaria. We can see live stream services in New York in English. We can see them in Slavonic. We can see them in Greek. We can see them in various languages. I don't like the filming of communion. That's just me. I think that is a specific and very special moment, and I think that the camera should be focused on the icons or something. But again, I'm not running that. Let me see here. Saba says, I was raised papist and learned Latin in so much as a Latin mass, and that was it. I don't think learning Slavonic for the liturgy can be a bad thing. It's not. And, even though, our synod, when we do Western Rite, we don't generally do it in Latin, there's nothing wrong with learning Latin, and it's helpful. Plus, a lot of the fathers' writings are in Latin. Even later Orthodox churchmen, especially in Russia, are in Latin. So it's useful to learn multiple languages. Can synods gain their validity again if they condemn a heresy they've been in? I don't want to over mysticize the question. The proper way things are supposed to go is that when a synod rejects a heresy, they should get into contact with those who have rejected the heresy and try to do at least some sort of semi or formal repentance. That said, is that the way it's always gone in history? No. In the Seventh Ecumenical Council, there were people who rejected iconoclasm, but had kind of been viewed as crypto iconoclasts, and then when confronted at the council, they were like, no, we're not iconoclast. So the point is, and then it was just like, okay, well, nothing we can say there. So it's not that synods can gain their validity again. I mean, in theory, it has happened, but it's the question becomes, how did that happen and why? And so you have to investigate it. It's not as simple as we turned it back on. It's a matter of, it needs to be taken seriously, because as we've even seen, how many cases do we see in World Orthodoxy where we see people go, the Moscow Patriarchate's not ecumenist? What do you mean the Ecumenical Patriarchate's ecumenist? They're not ecumenists. Well, what do you mean the OCA is ecumenist? They're not ecumenist. And the truth of the matter is, of course, they're ecumenists, but they're lying. So, yeah, that would require investigation. So we can't be satisfied with a person saying, well, we don't do that. No, prove it. Show it on paper. And Brody said that made so much sense. Thanks. I'm glad I could help. So I was glad it's closer to English than Slavonic, but give it enough time and you'll probably pick it up. Yeah, well, it's in there. Especially if you're bilingual, if you speak like Spanish or Italian or French, believe it or not, Slavic languages have the same similar structure as Romance languages, so you'd be surprised at how much you can pick up that way. So now I'm going to use the amazing multi-streaming thing, and I'm just going to check to see if anything is happening on the Twitter or Facebook, because this is apparently streaming to all of them. And so let me see here. Don't see anything going on there. And this is live. And let me see here. Okay, that seems to be commenting. Oh, the StreamYard actually puts the comments from Facebook on. No problem. Roku Remnant, this is what we're here for. Again, this is a live Q&A. And we have some time on our hands. And this is one of those ones where I'm looking for the hard questions. I know that a lot of people tend to get nervous about asking questions, and this is where we kind of want to open that up, just because these questions should be answered. People shouldn't be afraid of answering stuff like that. Roku says, "Is it okay if someone is picky with choosing a synod?" That's a very abstract question, and I'll explain why. If you're talking about, say, for example, there's no True Orthodox church of any kind near you, and you want to learn more about True Orthodoxy in general, also call around, ask which bishops would be more supportive of a mission, so on and so forth. That makes sense. You have a true Orthodox church, however, say a couple of miles away, or even up to an hour away. It makes less sense to be picky per se, because you can be picky insofar as you don't have anything, and you can decide what you want to ask of God through the bishops, etc. But when God's already given you the ability to get to church, etc., and you really do have it, but for whatever reason you want something quote unquote better, which doesn't quite make sense, then yeah, I would say that it's picky with choosing a synod depends on your situation, and in most scenarios, well, in the U.S., at least half the country can afford to be picky, but most of it's in what we call a flyover country. On both coasts, you can usually find a church somewhere. Um, but in any case, again, so we are in minute 21. We're going through the questions and comments, looking for difficult questions, and we've had some pretty good ones so far, so I want to thank you for that. Questions that are complicated, I mean, ultimately, we're talking about a complicated history. Recently, I was asked if to put together kind of a history of the various true Orthodox synods. Um, I might put that in a book at this point, because what we're talking about there is extremely long. It's not complicated, it's just long. Remember that we're dealing with, controversies that have infected the church now for 100 years. So, it's not like it's really complex to understand how the different Orthodox churches formed. It's just a question of explaining what happened in each intervening year. Like if we take, for example, Roca Remnant's question about the Matthewites and the Florinites, this is speaking specifically of the period between 1935 and 1950. That's 15 years out of 100, but it colors the rest of the history to understand the back and forth between the Florinite Matthewite schism, which is largely resolved. Because I hate to break this to people, but when we look at raw numbers, it doesn't look nearly as complicated as one would think. Roca Remnant says some claim that most synods have been corrupted due to their past association with the HSIR. I feel that such a position is a temptation of the right. Well, what would you say, Father? I would say that I wouldn't want to overgeneralize it as simply a temptation of the right. I think a lot of people were genuinely concerned about the position of the HSIR. It is worth noting the HSIR does not exist anymore. The HSIR has been subsumed into the GOC Callinicos. So when we're talking about Cyprianism, or when we're talking about this equivocation of world and true orthodoxy, really you can only find that among the followers of Archbishop Artemier, formerly Archbishop Artemier. I forget what the name of the new bishop is there, in the Rashka Priest-Ring Diocese on Serbia. And otherwise, that question doesn't really exist per se. Let me see here. And then is my connection dropping out? I hope not. It doesn't look like it is, but I will check on it. Okay, so he said, yeah, I'm not baptized. I'm trying to become a catechumen. There's no coffee or the hour after liturgy, and it's being a Russian church. My smiley ways aren't winning me any friends. That's a choice. And then I have 16 Orthodox churches in my city. It's too much choice. I mean, if you have 16 Orthodox churches in your city, I'm going to assume you are either A, in New York, B, or in the New York metropolitan area, B, in the Washington area, C, possibly the San Francisco or LA area. There are very few places that have 16 Orthodox churches, and I would presume there are probably at least 2 or 3 true Orthodox churches in your area, Chicagoland. And in those areas, there are true Orthodox churches in your area. So, you have to kind of, you have to go for the confession of faith. Again, I don't know of any, again, or if you live in an Orthodox country, that's also possible. Yeah, mine is too, Joshua. I hope not. Mine looks fine, so I'm assuming everything's okay. Pretty good for me. Good for me. Okay. So let's get back to okay. So you're in Canada. Okay. Calgary, Alberta, Canada. All right. So yeah, there is. I think we even have a church. Well, ours is in Edmonton. So the point is, yeah, there's quite a few churches in Canada. There are a lot of True Orthodox churches in Canada as well. So the point is, if you have the luxury of choosing a True Orthodox church as opposed to worshiping at home, go to church without a doubt. Let me see here. We have Saba is coming on. Good evening, Saba. How's it going?
Evlogete, Father.
Okay, what's going on?
Sorry, I'm trying to get the audio set up correctly here. I'm going to step over here.
Okay.
Hello. Yes. Okay. Maybe it'll work now. Okay. I think it works now. Hello.
Yeah, you sound okay. Hello.
Hello.
Rotarians might be in Alberta. Yes, they would be. And let me see here. So again, today's one of those days of hard questions, etc. Are there any true Orthodox churches in Los Angeles? And Roka Remnant says yes. So I'll leave that at that, because when I say I want hard questions, I don't mean hard as in, can you please look up all the directories for me right now? There has got to be a point where people do their own homework. These directories are available on church websites, on synod websites. You can Google them. I have my list on Gab that will make it a lot easier, with about 75% of them in the U.S. and outside the U.S. But again, your mileage may vary. The whole point is that there are, in fact, Roper says Hockman is near L.A. Now, Sally, you were at HTM recently, and I know that you kind of were. People have been kind of curious about that and have been mentioning it. So I wanted to get your impressions of that today, since you're on.
Okay.
When did you go there?
So I went there. I was there from New Style dates, January 3rd. Also, the audio situation here is still an absolute mess. Hold up. Maybe
You sound clear to me.
No, it's me. I can only hear out of one ear, so I'm trying to figure out how to get this set up to where I can actually hear. Okay, here we go. I think this works. Okay, so I was there from January 3rd, New Style, to January 8th, New Style.
Okay. And so what was that experience like? I was at HTM many years ago before the schism, so I imagine it's very different.
Oh, it was a very interesting experience. I've been to monasteries before in the United States. Of course, I've been to the St. John's Monastery, Abbey of the Holy Name, Vladika Andrelnik's Monastery in New York. I went in there with basically no expectations, which I think is the best thing you should do if you visit a monastery. Go in there with zero expectations. Don't set your expectations too high. You might be left disappointed if you do that. Because one of the things that people consider is they think they'll go there and find, holy saints and whatnot, and don't expect that. Don't expect that. I'm not saying anything bad about any of those places. Just don't go in there expecting the moon. In other words,
don't go there expecting a spiritual retreat.
No, in fact, actually, what you should be expecting is a lot of work.
That's something that is lost. People, especially people who come from Western backgrounds, tend to see monasteries as a place of retreat. And that's because of the fact that one of the monastic obediences is the taking care of guests. But that's not everything, especially not in an Orthodox monastery. So you can often be assigned something to do while you're there.
Oh, yes, and they have lots of work and they need lots of help. In fact, if you are a plumber or whatnot, carpenter, these places, they need help. These monasteries in New York and HTM especially, they need those types of workers, and they will tell you. So if anyone's struggling for work and they know these skills, you can go contact these people.
Okay. Now, Roko Remnant writes, Sava's experience left me amazed about how wrong I was about HTM. Now, you mentioned you had some stories, but we didn't actually go over any of them, so you could surprise me today. But
yes.
What was the big surprise there for, I guess, people you've been talking about?
So I went in there, like I said, with very little to no expectations, and I tried to not have a disposition prior. It's like, okay, well, I've heard all these stories about HTM and Hakna and whatnot. I decided to not take any of that into account. I listened to them in their own words. Try to be fair. Another thing I learned from going to other monasteries, just especially when Fyodor's in chat. Okay, I see he's being goofy. But yeah, just go in there with little expectations, and there's all sorts of things, especially with the GOC. They'll tell you, oh, they believe in all this crazy stuff. Just don't worry about that. I mean, if they believe in crazy
Do
stuff,
they
that's just
believe
their
in that
judge.
stuff?
What's that?
Do they believe in that stuff? Like, did you ask them about the name worshiping thing or anything?
Oh yeah, I asked about Emaslavy, St. Augustine, and the toll houses. And again, that's part of that thing of listening to them in their own words. I can only be as fair as I can be fair. With the Emaslavy controversy, I've spoken to a lot of people about the Emaslavy, and I don't know what to think about it at this point. I don't think Hakna buys into any supposed heresy at this point. I think Emaslavy was a real issue. I mean, I did speak to some people who said they didn't think Gregory Laurier preached anything heretical, which obviously, if they believe that, that's an issue. But I don't know if at this point in time they still buy into any heresy of Emaslavy.
Okay. So you basically, your impression was that they don't believe in Yugoslavia. They don't claim the name of God as God, etc.
Well, I mean, I don't know what's saying the name of God is God. If that's a heretical statement in of itself, I mean, I'm not here to debate theology, but I mean, the understanding I had of Emaslavy was saying the name of God is God in essence, and there's a few other things that St. Tikhon mentioned in his encyclical of 1921. I don't think they preach any of those things. They said, okay, we say the name of. I mean, they listen. I don't want to give out the business, but I've talked to a lot of people about the Emaslavy thing,
Okay.
and I think the biggest way of putting it is that it's the same issue that Etna had. HTM in the past and maybe today, I didn't see anything too concerning or alarming to me personally. Is that they want an elite ecclesiology. They want to have the thing that sets them apart from everyone else. So they made a big deal out of the name of God. I mean, I guess they're still doing that in a way. The best thing for them to do is just stop talking about it. Just stop talking about it. But likewise, there's the same issue you could have with Etna, with modernist leanings. That gets to the other point of denying toll houses. To me, that's just silly. I don't know why you would deny toll houses. But the people I spoke to, I don't know if I want to give out their names because I don't want people to go harass them.
Right.
So,
No, of course.
I spoke to the person who is in charge of the publishing at HTM. So, I guess if you're inquisitive enough, you could go figure out who that is. But he told me okay, the issue with toll houses in St. Augustine, he said that Hakna does not take any particular position on St. Augustine or toll houses, but they had this issue with Father Pantaleimon. Father Pantaleimon was very, very influenced by Father John Romanides.
Yeah, because when I knew them, they literally removed St. Augustine and some other saints from the calendar. So I don't know if they fixed that, but it sounds like they might have.
I think they moved past it in a way. I spoke to one monk who told me, yeah, of course St. Augustine is a saint. But then other ones oh, no, well, Father Pantaleimon always said he was a heretic. So I think they had this issue where, of course, they just listened to what Father Pantaleimon believed. And he was very influenced by Romanides. So a lot of the monks just said, well, we got to be Romanidians too.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fair. Now I'm going to get back to comments because they're getting larger. Somebody wrote, how do the Eastern Orthodox feel about the Nation of Islam? I heard about your path and fighting against the Western devils. You are close to us, black and brown peoples of Allah. Well,
he has the picture of Jacob as his avatar.
Jacob as in who?
That's the guy who has the big head in the avatar.
right, but I don't know who Yaqub is. All I know is,
Oh, in the Nation of Islam, they believe Yaqub created white people 6,000 years ago.
oh, okay, yeah. Well, Allah is a demon. So let's start there. You're welcome to come on, and we could discuss, Orthodoxy
Yaqub.
versus Islam. More than happy to discuss that. Goop says, I talked to an OCA priest, and he said since I was baptized Catholic as a baby, I would be received by chrismation. Should I find a priest who will baptize me, or do I submit? By the way, I am an inquirer. If you have the ability to find a true Orthodox church around you, they're not going to chrismate you if you were baptized Catholic as a baby, because that's not a valid baptism. So you would get the correct baptism. I see no good reason to fight with people who are instructed. Remember that OCA priest most likely is following the dictates of his bishop. There's no point in fighting him on the question. I would just go find a confessing Orthodox priest who will baptize you as is proper for people who receive the Roman Catholic pouring as a baby. Is the Philokalia good for a lay person to read without a guide, or should it only be read with a spiritual father to help you?
The latter.
Yeah, I will say what I was once told many years ago as a catechumen by a fairly good priest, and it was actually pretty good advice. What he said was, we have a tendency as converts to read things, the mystical writings of our church, and elevate them. And so here we are in the 21st century, sitting in, I think he said 20th then, but the point is I'm old. Sitting in our easy chairs with, a double, triple cheeseburger, reading about theosis and starting to believe we're attaining it when we're not in the work of prayer, when we're not doing the things we're supposed to be doing to truly understand these spiritual writings. You should probably not read them without a spiritual father. I'm not telling you, I'm not forbidding you. I don't believe in that, but I'm saying that you will get the wrong impression if you don't do things right. Orthodox was right. Mine Yakubu, spicy. I don't know. It'll be spicy if the guy wants to come on. He can. We was for real. We was kings. Okay, I don't know.
I'll just say, Father, I seriously doubt he's actually a member of the Nation of Islam. I think this
Allah
might be a
created
little bit
himself out of
trolling.
darkness in the form of a black man. The original man was made in his image. I disagree with a mainstream NOI, though I believe what Yaqub's white children can be saved. Well, I'm sure they appreciate that. That said, again, Islam is not the true religion. So, if you want to talk about it, again, just click the link in blue. We'll be glad to accommodate you. And Father Mark says, hello, listening on the way home from a house blessing. Many years he's doing the traditional blessing of houses after Theophany. Uncle
Oh, Father
Remnant
Mark, Father bless.
Well, Uncle Remnant also asks for blessing. Laza says, Father Mark, bless my house tonight. Demons be gone. Now we know whose house he's coming back from. Joshua Blind G says, what's wrong with the double cheeseburger? Nothing is wrong with the double cheeseburger in and of itself. It's just that it's not recommended, eating when, you're supposed to be reading the writings of the fathers who are concentrated on noetic prayer. I know nobody who can focus on a double cheeseburger, myself included, and a simple prayer room. I would seriously question their devotion to the prayer while eating a cheeseburger, I should say. Waza says, Yakub looks like a demon. Kessan Sasana says, thank you, Father. So anyway, again, today, so we're asking tough questions. So now let's get back to your experience over at HTM. Okay, so putting aside the theological questions, what was your experience there like? Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I lived in Michigan for 4 years, but it's been too long since I've seen snow, so I forgot what that stuff was called. So it snowed. That was interesting to see as a Louisiana native.
Okay.
And the building itself, the actual monastery, it's a beautiful building.
Yeah, it's 18th century mansion, if I remember correctly. It's a huge
I think it was built
building.
in the 19th century, but yeah, it's old. I know that
It's a
much.
very old building, and it's very big, and it can house a lot of monks. Yeah, it's quite an interesting building by itself.
And they have every square inch of that place is used. So they have shops, they have
Yeah,
cells, they have guest rooms. It's quite a large building. It's, I mean, you're not cramped. It's not, but again, every square inch is used.
okay. Well, I would say that sounds accurate. I mean, I don't know how many monks they have now, but I do know that it's they did have a lot of different obediences and a lot of different things that they would do over there. And just off the top of my head, I remember not only did they produce books, they produced icons, they produced incense. The convent, I don't know if you saw the convent nearby.
Yes,
That's
I
a
did get to see the convent.
they make candles, and so they do quite a bit. Just those two monasteries by themselves. Let me see here. Okay, Orthodox was that Father Joseph. What are the three main traps you see true Orthodox fall in that leads to apostasy? Probably, I would say, I'd say they're kind of common to Orthodoxy in general. The first one is basically pride. Ultimately, arrogance makes it impossible for you to listen to others. And I don't just mean your spiritual father, but even taking decent advice. Um, I would say that that's one of them. The other one is over rationalization. Simply, we have a tendency towards, especially now, and I hate to say this, but especially in the age of internet orthodoxy, with all these philosophers larping as Orthodox apologists, um, where everything is about trying to come up with mental answers, and sometimes mental answers can be useful, but what we really should be doing is relying on the fathers. When I say that, I don't mean relying on elders, I mean relying on research. People have got to get into the habit of reading. They've got to get into the habit of, I personally, I said, if you can't handle big books, get the Catena Bible at least, or the Catena Bible, so you can at least read what fathers have to say on certain passages, and it's just short, just so you can at least get a slight understanding of what the fathers understand these passages to mean, so we don't come up with our own interpretations. We learn to rely on the fathers. That's usually done through understanding biblical commentaries, etc. Pride, over reliance on self. Um, yeah, I don't know what the third one would be. You'd have to ask someone smarter who's thought more of the question. But I got 2 out of 3, I think. This is starting to feel like a troll. If you
Oh,
want
I
to
have
come
a third one.
oh, okay, and what's your third one?
Women.
No, sorry, gonna disagree. I'm gonna disagree only because of the fact that first off, there are women who try to become Orthodox, so that just seems like if you're talking about just relations with the opposite sex, then it could be problematic. Some people, however, are I don't want to over mysticize life to the point where people are like, "Oh, stay away! You're of the opposite sex." I think that's ridiculous. And that's a
No,
terrible way.
that's not what I meant. I was playing around a little bit, but what I mean is people that say, "Oh, I want to go marry someone, they don't want to become Orthodox." Well, I'd rather get married than be Orthodox. I've seen that
Well,
a
no.
lot.
Well, first off, if a person says I'd rather get married than be Orthodox, then that person doesn't care about their salvation. Trust me. In that case, the person of the opposite sex wasn't the problem. It was a spiritual disposition of the person speaking. Love of the world. That I think that puts it better. Father Boniface nails what I think you were trying to say here, and that's love of the world. In the sense that if you're not putting God first in everything you do, you're going to fail. That's just kind of a given. And then someone said the third one is delusion. I think these all kind of tie together. Women aren't the problem; it's the men. Okay, I don't know if I'd go that far. And someone thought that was fun. Love of self. I mean, we're starting to see a pattern here where we're talking about, we're talking about love of women, love of men, love of self, delusion, love of the world. It's all kind of what we're seeing is things that if we are turning away from God for the world, we're in some way, shape, or form failing. It's not what I would label as my number 3, since it seems like a composite of 5 answers. but it's definitely not wrong. But yeah, so other than that, again, this is it is a live call-in session, so feel free to call in using the link that's either at the top of the chat on YouTube, or if you are on Twitter or Facebook, that you've seen it somewhere listed. And let me see here. Okay, so some guy apparently was making fun of the fact that, yeah, the Yakub guy, I'm sorry there, Buffalo guy, but apparently he was, I don't know if he's upset or he's just mocking us, but I didn't plan this. You know, it's people can come on. You can come on if you want to. And if you're wondering what I'm referring to, let me just share here because I can share my Twitter. And I'll just share that real quick. And so somebody did comment on this and said that, and I'll make it a little bit bigger. Give me a moment. And so yeah, we get to that, and so somebody apparently is offended that I put everyone's comments up. I heartily apologize, but that is what a Q&A is about. If you are commenting, you're free to join in, Buffalo, if you would like to. And then Father Boniface says, love of the applause of men rather than God. I think that definitely counts. Would nihilism count? To some degree. I think that when we think nihilism is so destructive in the sense that it really kind of impugns the beauty of God's creation and kind of takes offense to it. So anyway, let's see here. But what are we gonna do here? So let's see. So yeah, we've got again, it is a live Q&A. We're on minute 47 here. And okay, so let's see. Who is the? Didn't mean to mess up the stream. Who's well? You're not messing up the stream, but it would be better, you know. I mean, if you wanted to talk about certain things, so please feel free to call in. But you know, kind of, I think it's I don't know. Like, here's my question: are you serious, or is this more of an entertainment / trolling thing? Because we'd like to help you if you really want to become Orthodox and answer questions as honestly as possible. But if it's just more to see your name up on the screen, then congratulations, congratulations. Okay, so tell me a little bit more, Sal. What interesting detail would you like to share most about, what happened over at HTM? How what affected you the most? Would you say?
Well, again, I guess like I mentioned in the beginning, the best thing to do is go in with no real disposition being held against them, no expectation. That's the best thing to do going to any monastery. I recommend that for anyone. I see someone asked, did Salva clear out the HTM bookstore? No, I didn't have the money. And also, I told the head of publishing to keep printing the Life of St. Maximus the Confessor, since it's been out of print for ages. So,
oh, really?
Feel free to do that.
I'm surprised that I thought that was still in print.
Well, it's been out of print for ages. I told them they need to keep printing it.
Yeah, and then let me see here. What's the best place to get a comprehensive history of the trajectory of the ROCOR of the GOC over the last century?
His book.
His book it's good. It is very. He said comprehensive though. That's where my concern is, because if there's one thing that Subdeacon Victorious' book is, it is a fantastic introduction to the history of ROCOR and the GOC, but it is literally an introduction. To understand more about that, I would suggest probably the struggle against ecumenism on the genuine Orthodox side put out by HTM, and I would suggest the truth about the Russian Church abroad by Ron Cienko. That is available free online. I hope that is republished soon, but it is. I'm trying to think where can you find that? Give me just a moment. That's what I thought. Let me see here. Let me see if I can find here. Okay. If you go to monasterypress.com/ftp.html, and I'm going to put this here, that's really useful for understanding the history of the Russian Church Abroad from its inception onwards. You're going to look for the title, The Truth About the Russian Church Abroad, from this link that I have put in the chat right here. So you definitely want to do that while it is out of print. The beauty of books being out of print right now is that you can usually find them online, and that's the best thing that one can do on that. Let me see here. Black Knight says, "I'm just messing around. I'm not NOI." Well, that's fine. Our our goal is that hopefully you would consider becoming Orthodox as opposed to some sort of weird Islamic sect variant. I'm not trying to be insulting. It's just it's not the true faith. So let me see here, and just switch that back to regular size. And so let's see if we've got here. So no problem. No problem there, Stefa. And let me see here. All right, so let's take a look here. So as I mentioned, again, we're trying to answer the hard questions that we can come up with here in terms of the more complicated ones. Sava, was there anything else you wanted to tell us about your experience at HTM?
Well, all the monks there, they're Yanks, and they don't know anything about Louisiana, so they thought I spoke French, and they're asking how many alligators I fought in the last year.
Well, that's different. Wow. Wow. I don't even know what to say to that. I'm surprised that so many people are confused about. I mean, maybe it's just because I lived a few years in Florida, but I don't get confused by this question. So I'm always amazed by people asking questions about the alligators. Like, I mean, one would think they're like palmetto bugs just crawling in and out of people's houses and stuff, and just I don't know. That's strange. But let me see here. Refined Canine asks, should people in conservative World Orthodox parishes on the old calendar stay where they are if there is no true Orthodox parish nearby? The simple answer is this. If there are people that are confessing the faith properly, because we got to get away from this concept of liberal and conservative. Ecumenists, there are conservative ecumenists and there are liberal ecumenists, and they're both heretics. They're just heretics that may be a little more politically acceptable to me. Now, granted, while liberal and conservative ecumenists are generally in communion, that doesn't mean that there aren't conservative parishes and priests, etc., who don't find the liberals to be obnoxious, heretical, and usually evil, but that doesn't stop them from breaking communion with them. Your task as an Orthodox Christian is to preserve the Orthodox faith. So, in a sense, let's say, for example, you have a conservative World Orthodox parish, let's say ROCOR MP, and there is a small 3 to 4 family true Orthodox house mission that gets a priest going once a month or once every 2 months. Would I say stay at the conservative old calendar parish? No, I'd say go to the true Orthodox parish and help them because they probably need more support. They need moral support. They need people to know that that the feeling of isolation is enough. That if you're just going to take the most sellout position you can, and I'm not saying you are, I'm simply saying that a person who does that is just well, I feel more comfortable. I hate to say it, that's when you become part of the problem. If you want to see the end of ecumenism, you can't support the ecumenists. You have to take a stand somehow. Wicked Wally says, looking forward to attending my first Orthodox liturgies while I'm traveling in a few weeks. Well, congratulations. I hope that they go well for you. I'm surprised that I assume that means there's none near you. But, again, what people are around here for is, to help people find their way to Orthodoxy. So if that seems like something that starts to build towards, what you're doing, I think that there will be people who will be willing to help, find, a mission, etc. Oh, this is pretty funny. Father Boniface says, tell them that the alligators only attack Yankees. If they sing Dixie, they will back off. Okay. Well, yeah, that's they just, the alligators, they won't play. You know, makes a lot of sense. Very patriotic alligators. But all right. So again, we're at minute 55 here. In the we've got let's see again. This is going to be the hard questions episode. If you're wondering what I'm going to call it, it's probably going to be called the hard questions episode. So I'm looking for people with hard questions about true orthodoxy vis-a-vis world orthodoxy, trying to figure out what's the right thing to do, or if they're trying to escape Islam. Yakub, that's for you. Please feel free to talk to us, and we'll see what we can do to make that better.
I have a
Joshua,
question
why
for
don't you? Okay, go ahead.
though the question is about the spiritual life, not about the true orthodoxy. I'm actually with Ezekiel right now, and he was the one that forwarded this question. He was asking, from your opinion, what do you usually look for with confession? Like, what do you think people should come in and confess? Like, how do confession, so to speak?
I don't know if I've ever shared with you the examination of conscience. Give me just a moment. Are you familiar with that? Give me a moment here. Hold on. Trying to remember. See, this is what I recommend for people when possible. And for this, I've actually got to go to the Internet Archive. I may as well just share what I'm doing so you guys can see. And then I will answer Joshua Blankenship's question. The short answer is I don't think so. But give me just a moment while I share this so it doesn't look like I'm doing anything particularly scary. This is the Internet Archive, useful for finding old websites. And the old website I'm looking for here is allmercifulsavior.com, which is the website, the old website of Father Aidan before he left us and then joined Rocor, then was with Rocor and had Western Rite stuff. Now, you're probably wondering, why am I going to Western Rite stuff? There are a lot of lists like this that have been put out by different fathers, but once you see it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There's Russian ones, there's Greek ones, etc. You name it. And so I'm going to this liturgics thing, and yes, I really do use this with people. And so let me see here. Liturgy propers, confession. Bada bing. Okay, so this is the old confession that's used in the Western Rite. Now, this is a brief description, how to tell my sins right. But here's where we get something that may look familiar to you, Savad. Let me know. It's a guide to confession, and it goes through a list of sins per like the 10 commandments. The first commandment, a bunch of questions here. Second commandment, third commandment, fourth commandment, fifth commandment, sixth commandment, all the way through the 10th commandment. Then some basic things on corporal and spiritual works of mercy. The idea is this. When I was in Sustal, one of the things I noticed is that people actually had these pieces of paper pre-printed which had lists of sins, just like the list that I'm showing you to the right. And they would check off the list of sins, and the priest would read the list of sins. And then there would be a little trash bin, a metal trash bin that was on fire, and after absolving the person, he would rip the thing up and throw it into the garbage bin. Now, this may seem like it goes counter to what we've heard about the therapeutic nature of confession and all that fun stuff. I don't know anything about the therapeutic nature of confession. I know that confession spiritually helps people. Hold on, that's an error. I'm going to delete that one because this one was wrong. It has a period on it. So let me hopefully get it right. Give me one moment. So ignore that first one. The second one should work. But in any case, so yeah, the idea is this. If one of the biggest things that I've noticed that people are scared of when it comes to confession is that they do not know how to separate themselves from their sins. And the simple reality is that separating yourself from sins is the whole point of confession. So I think personally, the way they did it in Susdal worked great. So whenever I've given a confession, I will either refer back to the book and just go check, 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 or if I have them print a copy, check it off. I'll read it and I'll burn it. And to me, once the absolution is complete, etc., that's done. That's it. That's the way it should be, in my opinion. It's straightforward, it's simple, and the person visually and physically knows that their sin is gone because it is, and that's the way we should really look at it. So I hope that helps. I mean, I realize that people kind of like expect these cool mystical answers, but I didn't have a cool mystical answer. What I thought was pretty cool enough. I don't know. Thoughts?
Yes, yes. Ezekiel likes the answer to that question. He thanks you.
Joshua Blind G asks, "Do you confess over the telephone?" You can. It's nicer if you can have the absolution done over your head, but I've heard people confess over the telephone. I've confessed over the telephone myself. It's not ideal, but if your priest is really listening and you're really speaking, and the icon's really there, Christ hears both sides of the line. So I'm pretty sure that can be done. I've heard people say, "Oh, that's problematic." I don't know. All I know is people have told me it's okay, and as far as I'm concerned, it's okay.
My Vladik, he takes a rule that you can confess over the phone, but you cannot give absolution over the phone.
Okay, well, and then you should follow the rule that you've been given. One thing that I'm not going to do, because from the perspective of our church, which is 2,000 years old, the telephone is a relatively new technology. So I'm not going to apply my rule dogmatically or the rule that I've been given dogmatically. If that's what your bishop says, you should trust him on it. Jason says, St. John Chrysostom said, not even the blood of martyrdom can wash away the stain of schism. Since the TO-GO groups are so divided, which are guilty of schism? Wow, that's one of my favorite questions that makes everybody angry. Let me put it to you this way. Because of the fact that they are divided, at times the charge of schism is invalid. And what I mean by that is that in many cases, for example, if you are dealing with some of the cases that occurred between the breaks in communion, particularly with the Greek groups in the 1970s, a bishop requires an entire synod of 12 bishops to depose him. It goes without saying that even if you can collect 12 bishops, you cannot depose 12 other bishops with the same bishops. That's uncanonical. So most of the canonical actions that have been taken against each other are invalid. So, was either side guilty of schism? Probably not. Were both groups guilty of overstating their case for schism? Probably. And this doesn't even apply in the Russian cases because there's UCAS 362. So, and that's, the idea that this is, that everyone's in sin, there must be one right. Oh, no, there can be a whole lot of people wrong and still be Orthodox. That doesn't make them better. It just means they're not heretics or schismatics. So I hope that helps. If you want to follow that up, you can, Jason. Okay, so we're at an hour, we're the 1 hour, 3 minute mark. Taking all the hard questions that we can. And that was a pretty good one, Jason. I will be saving that. And so let me think here. All right. So if anyone wants to come on, if they want to join the chat, you're welcome to. Just click on the link in blue. And, or you can click on the link that's in Twitter or in Facebook to join the chat and comment, give your 2 cents if you want to comment or question or disagree virulently. God willing, we have a couple of debates coming up in March. I believe it is against 2 different, one is against a papist guy and one is an Orthodox guy for discussion on true Orthodoxy. So that's going to be pretty interesting. We're looking forward to that. We're kind of hitting the end of January, so one thing I will say, and again, I've got to put this here. Please support the channel. We do need your help. You can support us by subscribing or donating at nftu.net or at GiveSendGo or on Odyssey because we do appreciate it. One of the things that keeps us going and keeps the lights on here is your support. So please do, and we will keep going. You see here, we've got a new question. To Joseph, what synod are you a part of? I'm sort of new here. Okay, hello, sort of new here, Mots. I am part of the Autonomous Metropolia of North and South America and the British Isles under Metropolitan John of New York. And let me see here. So if we've got any other hard questions, that was kind of easy there, Mots. I'm looking for the hard questions, guys. But if you got hard questions or you have uncomfortable questions or statements, please feel free. If you can think of your one friend who's like, I can answer that, then this is where we want them on. Let's have them on to have a discussion. And otherwise, I will probably call it. We'll probably call it a night at the half-hour mark. Saba, was there? It was good that you were able to tell us more about the kind of the situation at HTM. Was there anything more you wanted to let us know about?
With HTM, this is another oddball one, but the Greeks are terrible drivers.
I'm not touching that. I feel like I have a lot to contribute to that question, having been in Greece, but I would say that the Greeks are very skilled drivers in very dangerous situations. But that's I'll put it that way. And then Mott said, maybe I'll come next time with questions. My English isn't very good. That's okay. Mine isn't either. It's fine. So yeah, you're always welcome. But we do this every Sunday. So let's see here, and all right, so I'm going to check the Twitter and the Facebook. Jason says, I would think that with true Orthodoxy, genuine Orthodoxy in the West being so small, wouldn't it be a big priority to publish lives of true Orthodox, genuine Orthodox saints since the 1920s in English? Why hasn't this been done? To the degree that it has, it has in some cases, but again, we're talking limited resources. So yeah, there are usually there is some sort of synodal version of a publication. For example, I know that with the glorification of Metropolitan Chrysostomos, the GOCK publishes their own version of the life. I don't know. I assume it's accessible in some bookstore. So with various fathers, I know that Life of Saint Philaret. Probably the best one that was done was Vladimir Moss's, and again, that's actually kind of mostly available free. It's, I think also it has to do with the level of the cultus. One good example is that, for example, this. Let me see if I can put this up. If Subdeacon Katarios put up this. He put up I guess it's an icon that is that I guess is in a church in Athens. I would assume it's a true Orthodox church in Athens. And so he put this up here, and I want to see if I can make that bigger. Hold on.
Oh, that's in Piraeus.
Okay, that's in Piraeus? All right. So the point is, well, like if we get right down to it, and we look here, well, first off, Joshua Blind G's question, can you share some true Orthodox saints that the World Orthodox do not commemorate? That's almost all of them on this icon. But just to give you an idea, St. Hieronymus Agiopavlitis, I didn't know anything about. That's him right here. St. Hieronymus of Aegina, which some World Orthodox think he's part of them, is right here. The new martyr Catherine of Attica, I'm sure there is a life for her, but I mean, she was a young mom and a martyr. So even if she had a pious life, it's not going to be a very long one. New martyr, higher martyr Joseph of Desphina, again, there's probably a life of his in Greek, but I have no idea.
There's one in English.
There is one in English. Who publishes that?
It's on the Hysera website, the imoff.org.
Okay. Oh, imoff.org. Okay. And then there's St. John the New Almsgiver, St. Glycadia. His life is available both online and in Subdeacon Victorious' book. St. Chrysostomos, his life is available. St. Philaret, I mentioned his life, and St. John of Shanghai. So much of that life is well known. Given with St. John of Shanghai. But let me see here. So we're going as fast as we can here. So yeah, that's the hard question. There is that it has been done, but not to the degree or distribution that we would like. I'm using Google Translate. Hakta, is your sin or a different one? If different one, do you believe that Hakta has full of grace or no grace at all? I am not part of Hakta, and I do believe that they have grace. What is the true Orthodox position on God's omniscience and how it interacts with human free will? How are both compatible in the theology? Well, most understandings of free will generally fall under one of two categories. One in which God makes for allowance of change, and the other one which is hyperdeterminism, which is, I mean, what I tend towards, which is that God knows all the possibilities anyway. So you can make all the choices you want, but if God already knows what you're going to do, no matter what you do, well, that's you're still making the choices. Roka Remnant, what should one do if he's joining a synod whose bishop needs a correction in his consecration? If you know the bishop needs a correction in his consecration, you shouldn't join him. You should wait until his consecrations are fixed. It's not your job to be like, fix your consecration. If you know there's something wrong with it, you should go to a bishop who doesn't have that issue. Father Boniface says Vladimir Moss's books on the English saints, they are very good. Yes, they are. Roka Remnant says the Church of Greece considers Saint Euronymous to be a saint. Well, yes, they do. That's why he's on that icon. But if you mean the New Calendar Church of Greece, I'm sure that they do, but that doesn't mean he's there. Are you for the icon of God the Father, hypostasis directly, or is it Christ but Ancient of Days? I'm not an iconographer. I do not think about this question. Do you know what Synod Subdeacon Nectarius is with? Is he with the GOCK or ROCOR MP? We decline to confirm or deny. We simply do not know what Synod he's with. Please ask him directly. Who is the current head of the ROCOR MP? I believe his name is Metropolitan Nicholas. Hold on.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I don't know what his last name is. But in any case, it is Metropolitan. Okay, wow, it doesn't even list it anymore in the wiki. Okay, so Metropolitan Nicholas Olhovsky. And so he was one of the new fathers. He was taught to a reader by Bishop Hilarion of Manhattan. So that's there. Do you think Constantinople was cut off when St. Ignatius was elected as Patriarch by Basil the Macedonian? Are you referring to the Ignatian-Photian controversy? No. I think St. Photius was a legitimate patriarch. And I think, honestly, once you're talking about 1,000-year-old history, it's not going to totally. You're like, I don't have a current position on the Meletian-schism on which one was right. If they're saints, I recognize they were okay. It seems St. Nicholas Planas has some parts of his life omitted by the World Orthodox. That is very possible. I know that HTM does put out a Life of St. Nicholas Planas, and you should have that. Foreknowledge precedes predestination, Romans 8:29. Very true, very correct. Okay, and Saba, let's see here. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about HTM? Because we've been kind of interspersing your opinions of HTM with stuff happening.
Oh, I would tell people, as like, I guess, thoughts is that if you have the chance to go, I really can't tell you not to. There's definitely a reason to go, not just to visit the icon store and the bookstore. It's absolutely worth going. I mean, it's a very historic place. There's a cell in there. There's a room. It's not a cell, but it's where Saint Philaret used to stay when he visited HTM. I mean, there's pictures there they have of Saint Philaret there, and all sorts of people that visited over the years. Archbishop Auxentios of blessed memory, of course. There's no reason not to visit. If you have a chance to visit, you should visit.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. I mean, I think hopefully more people, if they're curious about them, will reach out to them and ask questions. These are the only way that things are going to continue to get better and grow in true orthodoxy is if people start asking more questions of everyone involved. Okay, Mott's asks, do you believe that during Emperor Leo VI, when both churches called each other graceless, yet both the leaders were accepted as saints after 48 years? I believe you've answered your own question. regarding the fourth wife of Emperor Leo VI. Two parties, one for it, the other against it. Both parties were recognized as Orthodox. I'm not going to disagree with the Church's judgment. All right, let me see here. So we
Do you
are
mind
here.
saying something, Father?
Please go ahead.
Mats, I don't know what language you speak. If it's Serbian, I can communicate with you a little bit, but probably not on the stream, probably over Discord, because you don't want to hear my Serbian anyway. I think one issue, this is something I see quite often, is that when you start going back and you want to do this grand analysis of church history, and it's like, oh, well, they made a mistake 1,500 years ago.
It's historical,
Okay.
Josh.
Okay, and I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, Mishpat and Anthony Hartopowski put out an encyclical where he said it was okay to be a Freemason up to a certain degree. He said that, sure, but that doesn't mean like, oh well, now this is graceless, or well, that he's even right. Obviously, he wasn't right. It's just, I think.
Well, Mats apparently speaks, I guess, in Arabic. You may be familiar with the Schism of 1724. If you are familiar with Church of Antioch history. And so the point is, in 1724, the entire what's the word I'm looking for, hierarchy of the Antiochian Holy Synod signed communion with Rome. They had been groomed into this over a period of about 2 to 3 decades by Franciscan missionaries. And in 1724, they decided to sign a union with Rome. Sylvester of Antioch, a monk of Antioch, fled to Constantinople, where they made him a bishop to basically reform the Church of Antioch because the hierarchy had become heretical. So now, in that situation, are you trying to tell me that because the majority of the synod went with Rome, then Roman Catholicism was right? Obviously not. That was within the rights of the church to do, to reestablish an episcopate. Yes, I'm talking about the Melkite Schism of 1724. So the point I'm trying to make with this, well, you're saying, but this isn't the full church. Well, neither was the Church of Constantinople in the situation you're referring to. The church was universal in that sense. So you can't just point to one incident where there's a dispute and then say, well, that's, that disproves something. It doesn't. Generally, no. Is there any true Orthodox old ritualists? No idea. If there are, they are in Russia. I know of no North American true Orthodox old ritualist parishes. There may have been some true Orthodox old ritual. There may have been some old ritualists accepted into true Orthodoxy in the past 30 years, but they would be in Russia. Well, it sounds like you're trying to establish it might be helpful if you came on because, again, I'm not sure what the goal is in terms of what you're saying. It sounds like you're trying to find a historical gotcha to either disprove Orthodoxy in general or what exactly. I'm curious, but I don't quite understand what you're doing here because it sounds to me like you're pulling out a particular theological squabble of periods. How many synods that are Florinite now? Which one has the fullness of grace? Had you been listening earlier, I would have said most, if not all of them. That said, I don't, automatically say that one of them is more right than the others. So hopefully that answers that question. But again, please feel free to just click on the link and join in. That's the easiest way to put it. But it's not that hard to answer these questions. If people trying to find the right answer in a question that's been resolved by history itself, it just seems pointless to me. Okay, thank you. You're welcome, and you're always welcome on. Okay, okay, that's no problem. You feel free whenever you're ready to join. No problem. I understand. Let me see here. So again, you were saying, Saba?
Oh, yes, Mats, we love you, brother. But yeah, it's not trying to be hostile. Just we get questions like this all the time, and
yeah, I don't mind answering them.
We can explain these. Just it's just hard to do it over comments. We have a Discord server, and I don't know if anyone speaks Arabic in there, but
think there's a
I'm
couple
sure
of
someone might know some Arabic. I'm not sure. But before he joins, if he joins, God willing, he does. I do have a question for you, Father.
Oh, go ahead. You can ask. Yeah, go ahead, Saba. What's your question?
Of course, most of us watching are probably familiar with some degree to Esphagminu. Esphagminu is a non-commemorator, old calendar monastery in Monathos. Which skeets on Monathos are true Orthodox? I know I've heard of some, but I don't know if
I
many.
know that St. Anna's Skeet, I believe, is, and I know there are a couple of other ones, but I don't have those. That's something you would want to contact Friends of Esphigmenou about, because they keep track of those a lot better than I do. But yeah, I would suggest going to esphigmenou.com, following the links for Friends of Esphigmenou. If you are looking to make a trip to Mount Athos, or you want to support the True Orthodox monks there, please feel free. That's the best way to do it. esphigmenou.com. Hello, Father Antonios. I get my material from Stavros. What do you think of him? I think he's an all right guy. I mean, he's contacted NFQ before for a lot of the publications of materials that he put out. Sometimes he put them out through us. So I thought Esphigmenou was in communion with the GOCK. Yes, mostly. The monastery is a monastery, so everyone is under obedience. First off, not to a bishop, but to Abbot Methodius. However, some monks may have a loyalty to, say, the Macarians or Avlona, etc. But the majority of the monks they recognize, Archbishop Callinicos of Athens. But they're a monastery on Mount Athos, so they're not actually under obedience to any first hierarch in True Orthodoxy. They're under obedience to their abbot. So just to be clear. Is he a good historian? He's not much of a writer. He likes to put together a lot of sources. He's good with sources. When you say good historian, I mean a person has to be able to create a narrative to support the sources, etc. I think Moss is a decent historian. I don't think anyone's really come close. But even he has flaws. He makes mistakes. But that's why we have to read multiple sources. When did the early GOC, not Matthewites, stop allowing laity to commune? I don't think there was ever a universal like that. There were certain groups that stopped allowing laity from communing. I know the Colivadis fathers were against that. So no, I don't think it was a universal practice. And people who imply it was a universal practice, I don't think are being honest with history either. So no, I don't think that actually happened universally at any time. Let me see here. Okay. And this is, let me see here. Okay. Do you agree that your bishops, when they all reposed, came from the new calendar and Roquefort at the time? No, I don't. And I don't agree with that simply because of the way it's being phrased. The idea that the apostolic succession in some way, shape, or form, apostolic succession is attached through the succession of bishops, but it's attached to the local church. So, like, when Roquefort made new bishops for the Florinites, those were bishops for the Church of Greece. They were not bishops for the Church of Russia in Greece. This is one of those misunderstandings that occurred between the Florinites and the Matthewites in the 70s and 80s. Both parties understood themselves to be bishops of the Church of Greece. And with that, the question of Theophilus Ionescu, I don't even want to get into it because that was part of the corrections. There were, that was dealt with. It was a hand that was dealt with. And again, it goes back to the question of Archbishop Matthew's own succession because if I remember correctly, one of his consecrating bishops was a repentant New Calendar bishop. So let me see here. With Esphigmenou, what was the deal with them throwing Molotov cocktails at those trying to remove them? If you live in a place as your home, and your monastery for most of your life, and a group of ecumenists, with the help of the police, want to physically remove you and all of your brethren to replace you with a bunch of ecumenists, you're going to try to defend yourself. I don't think that that is. I don't think that that's something that should really be up for dispute.
Just for note, it was one monk, not a bunch of them. It was one.
I wouldn't care if it was a dozen of them, because they were defending their home. They were also. Now, I'll flip that around and say, what was the deal with cops shooting monks on Esfigmenou getting olives from their own trees? Like, what was the deal with that? I mean, if we're going to get to that base level, what he's basically implying with the question is, doesn't that mean the monks of Esfigmenou are criminals? I would say, doesn't that mean the cops are killing them are criminals? So,
Say Moses spoke to a bunch of robbers. So
yeah. Do you believe the roll court has the fullness of grace after the union? I believe that the Moscow Patriarchate is outside the church, so they've joined something outside the church. Is Russia an Orthodox nation, as far as you know? 70% claim to be, but 78% of Americans. I don't believe Russia is really an Orthodox nation until it has an Orthodox hierarchy and monarchy, and it does not. It is. It has a lot of Orthodox people. It has an Orthodox history. And it has a culture that was largely dormant and is coming back, that is Orthodox. But no, I don't know that I'd call it an Orthodox country, even though the majority of people in it are nominally Orthodox. But it's that's still way better than the situation in the U.S. But I wouldn't go so far as to call it Holy Rus. They were communing with World Orthodox Serbian at the time when bishops were given a floor in it. Would that mean that they were communing with World Orthodox that the bishops given were graceless? This gets into the uncomfortable history of the Free Serbian Orthodox Church. It was not as simple as they were just in communion with Serbia. The Serbian Church was divided after, I forget, I want to say with the rising of Patriarch German.
1962 is when the Free Serbian Orthodox Church was founded.
So you had like a split in Serbian Orthodoxy. So it's not as simple. Yeah, people who say that, they weren't communing with the Serbs the whole time generally gloss over the fact that there was a split in the Serbs too. Some of my EO friends believe Russia is a holy nation, but I do not think that's the case. I think there are holy people and there are holy churches in Russia, and I think that we should be positively disposed towards it. But I think if you go to Moscow or St. Petersburg, they're just cities. I mean, they're European cities. When was ROCOR cut off from the fullness of grace? I don't like answering questions like that. I know people love those questions because they're looking for that gotcha. But the simple reality is, if you're not supposed to join the Moscow Patriarchate, when did ROCOR join the Moscow Patriarchate? 2007. That's when they started doing what they were not supposed to. So that's as far as I'm going to go. The letter in 2000 said they will not call the MP schismatic, which is part of the reason why Metropolitan Vitaly broke away. It's part of the reason why the other Free Russian Orthodox groups didn't respect them. Yeah, a safe bet is 2007. That's the safest bet. I would say a safe bet is 2000. But the point is that, it's a question that doesn't, mean very much. It's when we're talking about 23 to 15 to 25 years ago. So ultimately, that's what we have there. Did anyone, were there other questions and comments? How many synods are there in Roca at the moment? I am going to cut up out a video, so keep watching the space from last week, where we talked about the history of the Roca. I was supposed to do that this week, and I will do that to cover that. Is Archbishop Gregory Sect graceless? No idea. I don't know. He may have grace, but I don't know. Well, he was deposed, so I don't know. But
he's in schism. Everyone recognizes him as being schismatic. I don't think there's much of a question there.
The question is, I've heard people ask me, and this is privately, can Gregory repent? He could, and there would still need to be the correction of Bishop John. Again, it comes back to that whole like good guys and bad guys. It's easy to make Gregory the bad guy. Everyone, nobody recognizes him. so on and so forth. But can he still repent and return to true orthodoxy? He could. You see here, 6 or 7. Thank you for answers. You're welcome. Your blessing. May God bless you. We are now hitting into the 1.5 hour mark. Again, I would like to thank everyone for being here. Thank you, Sava, for being here and answering questions about HCM. Thanks everyone for their comments, questions, communications, and we will, God willing, going to try to be here a little bit more this week. So I may be doing I may be doing a show later on in the week, and we should be doing a book review soon, hopefully, because we do have that on the way. But yeah, just stay tuned. We'll see you at the very latest next week, and all of you have a good night, and may God bless you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Have a good night, all.
Thank you, Father.